Hi, this is Arnold Mangioli for Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. And today we're going to talk about what are we doing? Where are we going? What's next? What's next for all of us? What do we do to prepare for an uncertain future? Of course, I think to myself, well, aren't all futures uncertain? I mean, isn't that part of what makes them the future? Like part of what makes it fun? But I understand these are particularly uncertain times because there's so many variables that we don't know what will happen with so many aspects of things. Uh, and again, we're going to talk a little bit about what is this, Arnold? What is this grow thing? Well, it's leading to a new paradigm, I believe. I think there's a new paradigm coming that we have actually already entered into. So we'll start with talking about that. Again, grateful, ready, open, willing, as I said in the first video. It's not a new thing in response to the coronavirus epidemic. It's actually a thing that's been gestating with me for 7 or 8 or 9 years. I can't remember. It's been a while. But I'm very busy with my casting work and have not really had the gift of time to focus on recording these videos, setting up these channels. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We are both a page in Facebook as well as a group. We have this channel here on YouTube, and we're on Twitter as well. And probably a few other places. If you dig around, you'll find us. Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing is also at gratefulreadyopenwilling.com and gratefulreadyopenwilling.org. So, I'm not an expert. I have not mastered these principles of gratitude, readiness, openness, and willingness. Actually, I'm a practitioner. I practice these principles. I practice these attributes. And I flounder, and just like my workout practice, and just like my yoga practice, and just like my meditation practice, I keep trying. I do it. I stumble, I fumble, I fall. That yoga position where you're in, it's like a twisting triangle pose or something where your arm has to come beneath your thigh and grab your other hand or thigh. I fall into people sometimes, but I practice and I get better at it and I learn from the practicing of it. So I don't mean in any way to hold myself up as any kind of expert on these principles, but rather an explorer, and I invite you to explore with me. So I wanted to say that to be clear about that and ask you to accept these ideas in the spirit in which they are offered. One of the questions that's come up is this mainly for performing artists, for theater people? Well, I have worked as a casting director primarily in the theater for most of my life. And a lot of what I've learned is what I'm sharing here. A lot of what I've learned about human behavior, a lot of what I've learned about what works, a lot of what I've learned about what matters. And I'm sharing those aspects in the context of my life as a casting director of the Broadway Theater. So I'm hoping they have reached beyond a smaller community of actors and theater professionals. But you are welcome here as a performing artist, theater professional, actor, theater person, director, writer, songwriter, musician, whatever it is that you do that maybe as an artist inspires you to aspire to more. I also think this is appropriate for all creative people. So if you're a creative person and you would like to participate, please watch, join us, sign up to follow us on Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else you can find us. Please subscribe to this channel, subscribe below. And that's all creative people, which to me is all people, which is why I say we're an organization for performing artists, theater organization. That's such a funny word. We're a community of theater people and artists and creative people of all kinds. You are welcome here as the creative being that you are. So let's talk a little bit about our current situation. As I record this, Broadway is shut down. The head of the Broadway League, Charlotte St. Martin, she said yesterday that the idea of opening by September is quite optimistic, as there are so many complications unique to our industry. Most of the Broadway shows take place in buildings that are at least 100 years old. which means that even if you can figure out how to keep people 6 feet apart and conform to the social distancing requirements on stage and backstage and in the audience, you would still need to figure out how to get people down those narrow staircases and able to use the restrooms at intermission, which tend to be small and crowded in those buildings. So there's a lot to configure. Also, a high percentage of our audience is elderly or at least above 65. More than 50%, closer to two-thirds, is tourist audience, and at the moment there is no tourism. So getting people to New York to buy tickets at a pace that can keep those shows open will be a challenge that we have not yet figured out. Some theaters and restaurants have reopened in Italy, I heard on the news this morning, and the case numbers are now back up. So we're not sure what it's going to look like. What are we going to do over this next, it might be a year, it might be 2 years, might be more, might be 6 months, might be less. We don't know. My best friend has a wonderful manner about him. And he will say sometimes, if I ask him a question and it's not something he knows, he'll say, I don't know. And it's got this lilt that is kind of a pleasant excitement of, wow, I don't know, so that means we can figure it out. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. We can think of things. There's a pathway that opens, and we can go down that path. How fun. And he embraces it so much, just in the way he says those 3 words. That's how I hear it. There's so much openness about it. There's so much willingness. It's beautiful. And in this state, we can be ready. We can be judgment-free. We can be open to more gratitude. It's really fascinating because when it's not there, when, I grew up as a Bronx Italian kid years ago. And you had to have an answer for everything. You know, your parents asked you, your grandparents asked you, your uncles and aunts, your cousins asked you, and you had to have an answer. So culturally, I think a lot of us, and a lot of us certainly as Americans, but so many people, we feel we need to have an answer, know the answer, make up an answer. Brian Andreas has a wonderful artwork in which he says something to the effect of, I used to think my father knew everything until I had children of my own, and I realized how much stuff you have to make up just to keep yourself from going crazy. It's quite wonderful. But there is a curiosity about knowing that we don't know and embracing that. There is a path that opens up. And there's something beautiful about that. There's a judgment-free mindset. There is an openness about it. As theater people, show business professionals, we've done this. We've done Saint Denis mask work. We know how to wear a mask and express with our eyes or express with other parts of our body what we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we wish to communicate. We know how to get up early and wait in line. We do it for auditions all the time, for EPAs and ECCs and open calls all the time. We know how to clean stuff before it comes into our house, when we bring in the groceries or our luggage. We know how to center ourselves. We know how to meditate. We know how to be creative, and that's the key. In many cases, people are being reactive. I've certainly done that, and I'm sure you have as well. It's part of human nature that we find ourselves being reactive. There are plenty of protests going on right now, people rebelling against the shelter-in-place ordinances and the idea of quarantine and staying out of the public or wearing masks or social distancing. They're reacting. That's a reaction. Our federal government is reactive. The government in South Korea, as soon as the World Health Organization gave them that information back in December, January, and their reaction was immediately to be creative about it. They decided to take the configuration from the WHO of what that this particular virus was and create a test and test everybody randomly, not just people who are very sick and go to the hospital, but they made tests available to large groups randomly, and they are not having an economic shutdown because they acted quickly and they were creative about it. We're a little behind it here, and we are reacting, and we're seeing a lot of reactive behavior. And at the state level, here in New York, Governor Cuomo has created, with a field of medical and science experts and virologists and epidemiologists, he's created 7 conditions for reopening areas of the state. And you have to meet all 7. New York, as of today, is up to 4 of the 7. And the conditions have to do with the number of intensive care beds that are available in the various hospitals in a region. They have to do with the reduction in the number of new cases. So there are 7 aspects. And this was a creative reaction, which was good leadership and is helping a lot of people. Reactive is not a good state for us. In a reactive state, there's judgment. There's a loss of our beginner's mindset. For myself in casting, I know this, I try to stay creative. I try to stay having it as a creative process. And very often, producers will have a long request list. And I know it's unlikely that Brad Pitt and Anne Hathaway are going to do their reading. So I have to investigate their requests, but I also have to find the people who are just as good, who can do it, who will do it, who will take the gig. And it requires a lot of creative work in its best form. And I love that. And I love my work. And I love to do it because it is creative. If I get in a reactive state, there's no way I'll get the show cast, because I'll be reacting to all of the requests and all of the different things people are thinking about who are affiliated with the show in every way. In the meantime, ultimately, there's going to be some day of auditions, and I have to bring in the right actors for the right roles. So I have to stay in a creative mindset. I want to just share with you a little chart I've come up with. I got a little diagram. So here's how easy it is to change that. I don't know, can you see that? Here's how easy it is to do something about it. Is if we are in a reactive state, we simply need to move the C over here, and then we can be in a creative state. It's that simple. Just move the C from here to here. And then rather than being behind it, we are ahead of it. Rather than being judgmental and being uncertain and being angry and not offering anything new, we suddenly are in a beginner's mindset and trying new things. And lots of great stuff can happen from here. A pathway opens. So I really encourage you, because it's that simple, to just shift our mindsets and go from reactive to creative. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing when we can do it. So where do you want to be in a year? If there were no pandemic, where would you want to be in a year? If there were an active Broadway theater right now, would you want to be on it? Great. What else do you want? Would you want to be on a TV series? Would you want to be writing? Would you want to be creating something for yourself? Do you love to work on Shakespeare? Do you love to work on women's theater, on gay theater, on African American theater? Do you love to work on new works, contemporary theater? What interests you? What would you like to be doing? Let's be creative. Let's not simply be reactive to, like, okay, there's a coronavirus pandemic on, the theater is shut down for the time being, oh, there's nothing to do. You know, there's a lot being put forth out there. I've seen a lot about how this is a time that is difficult, and you don't have to write the great American novel, you don't have to write anything, you don't have to upgrade your portfolio, you don't have to redo all your materials online, you don't have to work on your monologues, you don't have to work on your songs, you don't have to do anything. I'm not a fan of that so much. I mean, I get it, and I think the gentleness is very, very important. And nothing in nature blooms all year long. So if this is a dormant time for you, for nurturing, for resetting, for recalibrating, for taking care of yourself and just sheltering in internally as well as externally, I understand that, and that's great. But we've been doing this for 9 weeks now. And I think we have to think a little bit about what we'd like. It's springtime, and things are blooming. And maybe it's time for us to bloom also. I saw a post that really made me laugh. Some woman wrote that Gwyneth Paltrow was just on a show and she said that this quarantine would be a very good time for writing a book or learning a foreign language. Well, I just spent the last 3 hours in my bed pulling chocolate chip cookie crumbs out of my bra, and I don't see either one of those two things happening. And I thought that was quite delightful. Uh, yes, be gentle with yourself, but also be the artist you are meant to be. Sing, dance, act, flourish, grow, delight in your art, draw, cook, make things. Shout out to Congress. It is still an election year and an important one. Awaken. Your voice is needed. Sure, take 2 or 3 weeks off. Maybe you took 9 weeks off. Great. Now let's work for the next 18 weeks. Let's work for the next 27 weeks on making our dreams a reality. I'm not such a fan of the passive. We have so little time here. You, 1 in 400 trillion, you are very much needed. What if this is the end of civilization as we know it? Anything you want to do first? Now is the time to do it. Grateful? Celebrate that. Ready? Ready? Get set. Go. Open? Are you shutting down or are you opening to a new beginning? We don't know what will happen next. I don't know. And a path opens, and there is curiosity and there is possibility. So we can begin with gratitude. Get ready. Open. And be willing to see what's next. We can be creative. Heal. Time is passing so quickly. As I record this, it's been 9 weeks to the shutdown. Sometimes something in this that feels like it's only happened yesterday or the day before or 2-3 days ago was actually 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. The point of power is always in the present moment. The closest approximation of eternity that we can possibly have is now. Activate the now. Get away from worrying about the future and dwelling in the past. Who is it who said worrying or anxiety is misplaced imagination? Julia Cameron has this wonderful, wonderful thing in The Artist's Way where she asks you, what can you do in the next year to fulfill your creative vision or realize your goals or make your dream happen? What can you do in the next 6 months? What can you do in the next 3 months? What can you do in the next month? What can you do in the next 2 weeks? What can you do in the next week? What can you do in the next day? What can you do in the next 3 hours? What can you do in the next hour? What can you do in the next 10 minutes? What can you do now? So you see, there's a new paradigm that seems to be forming, certainly in the theater industry. There's more kindness. I expect when we resume the audition process, people will be a lot happier to be there. They'll be a little less turning down the job because I'm not sure I really want it anyway. I think people will be really happy to get a job offer and really happy to embrace the work that they really want to be doing. So I encourage you to be on the pathway to this new paradigm. I really think in many ways this new paradigm is already here. I think the old ways of feeling a bit apathetic and taking things for granted have completely shifted. And I think now we need to look differently at the things we love to do and enjoy doing them with the time we have. And the time we have is now. This is Arnold Mangioli for Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. Thanks for listening. It's such a pleasure to be with you.